Now, for several months, Kenya has been witnessing an acute water shortage, and virtually all the rivers in the country are showing signs of drying. Most towns have been experiencing recurrent water shortages, and experts are warning that if urgent measures are not taken, the situation could turn into a crisis. Now, the question is, why can't we manage our water resources efficiently? What is the best way of protecting our water catchment areas? And how can we harvest, and the question here is harvest for me, and conserve water even during these times when the world is grappling with climate change? And I'm glad to be joined by Susy Wandera, who's the Secretary of the Board and the Climate Change Focal Point at the Sustainable Environmental Development Watch. That's Suswatch Kenya. Good morning.
Good morning, Angie.
Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
So you're going to tell us a bit about this. You're a mouthful. Climate Change Focal Point at Sustainable Environment Development Watch. So who's Suswatch, first of all?
Suswatch,
yes,
is a network of civil society organizations that work in the thematic areas of climate change, of course, gender and energy, trade and governance, sustainable land management.
Okay, but today we're discussing environment.
Yes.
Excellent. Now, reports, of course, that we're getting from most parts of the country is that our rivers are drying up.
Yep.
So from your area, what is it? What is the current situation, and where are we facing this water crisis?
Well, what we're facing, what we're experiencing are impacts of climate change. I know oftentimes when people talk about climate change, they think, oh, it's a one-time thing.
Yeah, we talk about something
event.
melting,
Yes. Well, of course, for example, Mount Kenya, the snow that used to be on the top, that soft snow,
yes,
is melting. There's very little of it left. But it's not only us. Even Mount Kilimanjaro,
yes,
it had solid ice. Yeah?
It was ice thick.
The ice was different from ours in Mount Kenya. It was solid ice. It's melting.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's melting because temperatures are rising. And of course we experienced that. I mean, 8 days ago, last Monday, it was super hot.
Hey,
at least in Nairobi.
I was craving to be in Coastal by a pool somewhere.
Yeah. But then also think the year before it was warm. The year before that it was warm. So the point is the world is getting warmer. And when we talk about the world, Kenya is getting warmer. When it's getting warmer, it's getting drier.
Okay, yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Which means, and for those, people can remember the biology about evapotranspiration. Basically, when it gets warm, water evaporates.
Yes.
Yeah? Not only from our bodies, but from soil. Right? So therefore, the ground is dry.
Yes.
Super dry.
Yeah.
Now, you add on top of that, the way we have destroyed our forests, the way we build. People buy a property that has mature trees. When I talk about mature trees, 30, 50, 100, maybe longer. Yeah? You cut them from the ground up.
And
right?
you uproot the roots.
And you uproot the roots and you replace them with cement. Right?
Yeah.
Now, what those trees had been doing all their life is that they've been holding carbon monoxide. Yeah? The minute you remove them, and then also they were absorbing the light. The light and the heat from the sun. The minute you remove them, that cover isn't there, right?
Yes.
So when the sun rays hit, they hit cement, they hit concrete, they hit the marram, and they bounce back.
Yes.
Yeah. So we as living beings, that heat that we're feeling, the extreme heat, is bouncing back on us because there is nothing around us. There's not enough of something to hold that heat. Water is one that holds heat, water bodies.
Yes.
But when the water bodies also are drying up, yeah, heat has to go somewhere.
Absolutely.
So the point is human-driven. Climate change, when we talk about climate change, it's about human beings' activities.
So it's our activities that are causing this climate change.
Yes.
That's what is making the planet warm up.
Yes.
So can we say how much has climate change contributed to the current water scarcity? Because that's one thing a lot of people know about, lack of water.
Well, I would say 90%.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. One, remember, Kenya, first of all, is a water-stressed country. It has always been a water-stressed country.
What does water-stressed for us mean?
What it means is that in our population, the map of Kenya.
Yes.
As long as anybody has ever known, you've always seen that maybe 80% of it has always been an orangey brown color.
Dry, yes. Yes.
So basically meaning almost, and we talk about arid and semi-arid land.
Yes, we do.
Which is majority of what constitutes the land of Kenya, the physical geography of Kenya. Which means we do not have enough water in the ground of Kenya. Water stress means our water tables, the soil, yeah?
Yes.
If it's not used well, yeah, if it's degraded, yeah, then the impacts are immediate, and that's what we're experiencing.
So we understand, first of all, as by nature, this is semi-arid, arid land. That means we naturally do not have enough water.
Exactly.
And then now, because of how we're treating our environment, we're making the situation worse.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we are responsible for what is happening.
Exactly. And then recognize our population is growing.
Oh, yes.
There's more demand for water than there is supply. You know, in business, you talk about supply and demand.
Yes, we do.
Now we're talking about water. There's more demand for water
for people,
than the supply.
for factories,
for people, for human beings,
farms, yes,
for households, for the whole agricultural system, from crops to livestock to fishery. And by the way, also recognize when the temperatures warm up, the chemicals are the body, our body, we talk about health.
Yes.
Not only human health, but animal health, even fish health.
Yes.
It changes how our bodies behave.
Right.
So, for example, fish, when the temperatures become warmer, the chemistry of water changes.
Yes.
Yeah? And when the chemistry of water changes, it will increase, like maybe more algae in the water, or less algae, less nutrients for the fish.
For the fish, and less oxygen.
The fish also will change. And some of the fish species will die.
Yes.
You know? Like in Lake Victoria, there's more Nile perch than there is tilapia.
Right.
Yeah?
And that's because of the change in the water.
Yeah, so the tilapia, what they do, because the waters are becoming too warm for them, they're going deeper into the lake. Right, like going towards the bed of the lake.
Because it's cooler down there.
It's cooler there.
Yeah.
But then the lake is also shrinking.
Oh dear.
And there's more pollutants in the lake.
Yes.
Yeah. So that species is dying out. Yeah? So it will come a point where the fish species that we know will actually have to be fish farmed.
Okay.
Which, have a different taste.
Yes. Oh, they're bland.
Yeah. Okay, so I digress. But the point is, okay, and this is in the Kenyan context.
Yes.
Yes.
So we're understanding. So first of all, by nature, we do not have enough water.
We don't.
Now, two, because of this climatic change, things are heating up.
Yes.
So even how the water is changes the concentration of chemicals and other things.
Yes.
The natural ones to start with.
Yes.
So that means certain animals cannot thrive in certain environments.
Absolutely.
So they'll be phased out.
Yeah.
And then now there's human activity. We are also polluting.
Yes.
Which is also eradicating. So basically, we are the makers of what is happening to us now.
And then there's also the reverse. As those changes are happening, it's becoming warmer, diseases that didn't exist before
are appearing.
What they talk about, invasive species, plants and animals, yes? Little weeds that didn't exist before start proliferating. Start growing like grass.
Like malaria now being found in Rift Valley.
Yeah.
That was not an area for malaria.
Exactly. But then you see, the malaria one is very easy to see. Because people talk about it, they hear, oh, there's malaria. But what I'm talking about, we're talking about in the water context.
Yes.
Yeah? The water bodies.
Yes.
Waterborne diseases that didn't exist before. Yeah? Begin to emerge.
Because the temperatures have become warmer
warming,
and more
so
conducive.
It's attracting. Yeah? Like for example, and I know this is a gruesome subject, but when a body dies, human or otherwise, if it's left alone, after a few hours, when you open it up, you will see that there are maggots and things inside.
Yes, which is natural.
Which didn't come from outside; they were inside, right?
Yeah.
I recognize it's a yucky subject.
But it's
the point I'm trying to get across is, when it gets warm, I'll use an example of maggots.
Yes.
Or worms.
Okay.
Yeah. Those grubs. They begin to. Warmth is the temperature that is right for them. So
and
they become
thrive.
more and more of them.
Uh-huh.
There used to be diseases called bilharzia.
Yes, I remember bilharzia.
Yeah?
And
they begin to spread. And you know what happens? Because they're attracted to stagnant water. Stagnant water attracts different kinds of bacteria which grow.
Yes.
So on one hand, the things that are beneficial for human lives to eat and animals to eat are dying out.
Yes,
and
then the bad ones
are growing.
You
get?
Yes.
So when we talk about water stress, we're talking about water quality, water availability, water storage. And storage not in terms of tanks.
It's in the ground.
Harvesting. On the ground.
Yes.
In the ground.
Right.
I mean, a few years ago, there was a large body of water, a reservoir in the ground, found in Turkana County.
Yeah, we hear it's humongous.
Yes. The thing is, it's saline, it's salty.
Oh, we weren't told that. We're just told there's enough water to give us water for the next 25 years.
Yes. It's enough water to do that, but it will
you need a desalination plant.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
To be able to distribute.
Okay, now, the former Environmental Cabinet Secretary, Professor Judy Wahungu, said the cost of climate change to the economy is up to like 50 billion shillings.
Yep.
So would we say it's one of the biggest challenges that we're facing right now?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
And with all due respect, for the Big Four agenda to be achieved, they must integrate climate change adaptation in all the sectors
to be able to attain this.
Yes, all the sectors.
Yes,
that the way they are categorized in the Kenyan economy, including national security.
Of course,
yeah,
it's crucial.
Including what they call governance, justice, law, and order sector, GJ laws.
Yes,
all of that
because it's part of our existence.
Yes, because from the security point of view, the conflicts we've been experiencing for the past, actually, you could say a 10-year period between pastoralists and
over
farmers.
Water rights. Yes,
it's over that.
Yeah,
and that will increase. So there are certain hotspots in the country that I know our security forces have identified.
Yeah.
The question is, will they be allocated enough budget to
take care
incorporate
of
so that if something is happening, they can deal with it rather than it escalating.
Okay, now, the dry spell has been broken by heavy rains across much of the country for this past 1 week, and we called up the director of the Meteorological Department, Peter Mbenje, to get an update on the weather conditions for the week ahead, and this is what he shared.
Most parts of the country have gotten some rainfall, but the heaviest have been in Western Kenya and parts of Central, and even the northern areas, places like Marsabit have also gotten some heavy rainfall, including Wajir and parts of the southeastern lowlands, and even areas like Taita Taveta. When we have heavy rainfall, they always talk about El Nino. El Nino does not always give you heavy rainfall. There are many causes of the kind of rainfall patterns we are seeing. Like right now, what is called El Nino is not even prevalent in the Pacific Ocean. So there's a specific system that has given rise to what we have. And so I think what you need to understand is that there are other factors that give rise to the kind of patterns that we are seeing. The projections are that by Thursday we should see a decline in the kind of rainfall patterns we are seeing, and by Sunday we come back to fairly dry conditions within this week. March, April, May is the long rain season. This just fell it has come a bit early. In some areas it's not the proper onset, but at times we get episodes like this. And when we do the 7-day forecast, we normally identify days within which you might get such like spell. So it will not interfere. The prediction we did for March, April, May is still valid as far as we're concerned. The western half of the country is likely to get near normal rainfall enhanced. The eastern half of the country is likely to get depressed rainfall. And within that, there are possible onset dates that you projected.
And, of course, you've heard what the Peter Mbenje has to say. Do you think the current spell of rain will make any difference to the water situation in the country?
In places where there is enough vegetation cover,
yes,
it will. Mm-hmm. But in places where there isn't, we will experience a bit of flooding. Because, there are perennial places where a bit of rain and it covers the soil.
Disaster, yes.
There's flooding in is it Tarakanyethi? People think flooding is by the way, Budalang.
The Budalang is on we knew for a very long time.
What happened was way back when the National Youth Service, they were deployed to build dikes. Yeah. Those dikes are helping. That's why Budalang is not experiencing the floods it used to.
Yes.
So in hilly places in the country, they could be practicing terracing. Mm-hmm. You know how
water comes down gradually.
You could use grass because that grows quickly. Yeah. So that it holds a bit of water. Mm-hmm. Right. But I think also we need to get away from short-term, immediate crisis mode reacting
into long-term planning.
Yeah? And also it's a change of attitude. Mm-hmm. It's not tungependa serikali
tunaomba serikali
tusaidie. It's not about that.
Yeah.
Because actually, the Climate Change Act, the climate change legislation that President Uhuru Kenyatta signed in 2016, Article 4 talks about all persons. Yeah, that tackling climate change must be done by all persons in this country.
Are we doing then in that? Are we addressing, do all persons understand our role in climate change?
No, they don't. You know, they assume that government, both national and county, should take care of it.
Yes.
Or private sector should take care of it. Or people who have means should take care of it. Every single person has a way that they can contribute. You know? So the destruction of forests is unfortunate. But going forward, how do we ensure that not only do we protect the forests, and by the way, it's growing forests, it's not planting. You can plant it today,
and
but are you nurturing it?
Yes, that's the question. I like that.
So
so we need to get into that, of course. What are the things that we can do? And then, okay, it's a very good morning to you. Today we are discussing matters water, what has been happening, conservation, and of course we are now understanding the impact of water scarcity. We have with us in studio Susy Wandera, who is the Secretary of the Board and the Climate Change Focal Point at Sustainable Environmental Development Watch. And she's explained the impact of water scarcity, what happens even in the environment. Now, we've talked about our lives. Let's talk about the impact of water scarcity on wildlife. And the Kenya Wildlife Service says animals face survival threat because most of the rivers are flowing through areas like Meru National Park, which is home to the Big Five, have dried up. What are your thoughts?
It is quite unfortunate. Because, you know, animals. I mean, you know, we have the famous migration.
Yes, the the migration. Oh my!
I know. Yes,
we will remember.
Yes,
now.
But the point is, wild animals, they move by instinct.
Yes.
On one level, it's instinct, but one is the sort of a universal
they go with the
consciousness,
yeah.
Where they know at this particular time they move back and forth.
The Mara migration.
Yeah, the Great Mara migration.
Yeah.
And the drying of the rivers is coming from the destruction elsewhere. In other words, by the time you get to the river, you know, for example, I know, since we're talking about Mara, the Mao system,
yes,
which is part of Mara, it has 32 rivers. 32 streams that used to feed into it.
Wow.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So at from Meru, Murang'a and all that, where if you're there's a lot of degradation.
Yes.
Yeah? Talking about from Mount Elgon.
Yes.
Also that degradation.
Yeah.
All that has an impact. And so when the animals don't, when after season in, season out, if animals as they're going along their path see they're not getting water, they're not accessing water. One, of course, they will attack human beings.
Well, look for where water masses are.
So you have the human and wildlife conflict. But two, they'll get to they'll kind of in their coping mechanism. They're like, okay, in a sense, kind of like note to ourselves. There's no water on this side. Let's try somewhere else.
Yes.
Where you'll find, first of all, the migration will no longer happen.
Yeah.
Right. The wildebeest will stay in Tanzania.
They might not come back this way. Yeah.
To up there, there's no water.
Yeah.
Right. And then as our animals begin to die out. You know, also one of the way animals cope intuitively
is they stop having producing offspring. Yeah.
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 And wildlife is a key component in our tourism package.
Right.
So that means that you'll have to take tourism off of Kenya's
one of biggest assets
economy.
Yeah.
And that's a danger.
Yeah.
So it is in our interests. It's in our interests to really, really, really go the extra mile in conserving the ecosystems. But because people are very impatient, they expect that if you plant a tree today, it will grow 6 feet tomorrow. Ecosystems take a long time to recover.
Take tens of years,
decades. Naturally, they can recover naturally, but because there's pressure from the human being, it takes a lot longer. So a minimum of improving an ecosystem.
Yes.
When I mean the ecosystem, I'm talking about the ground, the soil, the water, the vegetation around it, the shrubs. We're talking a minimum of beginning to see impact in about 5 to 7 years.
Wow. And you see here we are banning logging for 3 months, and it takes a tree, even if it's the hybrid, 7 years to grow.
Yeah. And indigenous trees are the ones that
take even longer.
Yeah, we're talking, and what has been destroyed is trees that are older than Kenya is as a country.
Yes, 50, 100, 200, very, very, very old trees.
And animals have been destroyed. Species are disappearing. Even the number of elephants we have are reducing. So it's not just for the sake of wildlife. It's for the sake of life.
And in fact, according to the UN says that climate change and population growth would result in 2/3 of the global population facing lack of sufficient water resources by 2025. That's barely 7 years' time. So what are the things we can do to change the way we treat our water resources? Because it basically means we're facing extinction, even as human beings.
True.
So what are the things we need to do, especially now when you think about Cape Town, who, come April, hello, they're on what? Is it 23 gallons of water right now per person?
Yes.
And that could happen to Kenya very, very easily.
Yeah.
So what are our alternative water resources that we should be exploring?
Well, first of all, one of the almost basic things is preventing water leakage.
Okay.
What I mean that is the water infrastructure, the pipes and all that. Maintaining them.
Okay.
You've seen, you've heard of water
leaking somewhere for weeks.
For weeks, for months. First of all, those are some of the basics of stop the leakages. Maintain the water systems. And I know they'll be like, oh, it costs a lot of money. Well, actually it doesn't. What it takes is caring. Yeah? And that one, of course, is a public duty. The duty bearer, which is government. And in this particular case, it would be the county government. Yeah? But then also parts of national government. Once upon a time in Kenya, there used to be, what would you call them? Maintenance staff.
Crew that would go different areas and fix
check
the lights and everything.
Before the consumer would actually complain, they would have already identified and taken care of it. We need to probably go back to that. Not even probably. We actually need to go back to that.
Okay.
My point is, we need the duty bearer needs to include maintenance in everything they do. As part of the services provided. Yes. So that way you can be able to identify there's a leak here. How do we repair it? And you repair it, or you take care of it before it becomes so huge that now the pipes or whatever have to be replaced. And also, by the way, when water is leaking on the roads and things like that, it is destroying the roads. Yeah,
which is then more money spent on maintaining, because like tarmac and water are really not good friends.
But then on the household level, how you use water. If you're turning on the tap,
to brush your teeth.
No. Don't just turn it on and then let the water run. Use water economically. Recycle water. Like if you're cooking, if you're peeling vegetables and things like that, that water can be used. Okay, if you happen to live near a garden or something, you can water your garden. Or it can be used to maybe just to mop. If it was just vegetables, for example, you can use that water maybe just to clean. Like the people who mop on their pavements and things like that, instead of using fresh water. I mean, it's actually a change of lifestyle. People think that
so we need to think what we're doing with our water.
And when you think about that with water, you think about that with all the resources.
Okay.
Because even how we use food.
Yes,
we waste a lot of food.
We do. Do we need all that we're consuming? And how we
and that food, a lot of water was used to produce it.
Or to bring it to your table, because it's been washed, it's been packaged, it's been done many things.
So all those things come into play. I mean, basically on an individual, household, community and society level, everybody's got to get to a point of thinking, what can I do?
I think that's a good question for all of us to ask ourselves. And let's get to the biggest story, of course, right now is the issue of logging. And here is the Deputy President announcing a 3-month ban on logging in public and community forests.
Sehemu nyingi ya Kenya, misitu inaharibiwa na watu ambao wamepatiwa leseni kukata miti, na leo nimeamurisha wizara ambayo inahusika na mambo ya mazingira na misitu kukomesha kukata miti katika forest yote ya serikali na ya community for the next 90 days. We must stop all cutting of trees in all our forests, both state forests and community forests. Kwa sababu tuko na shida kubwa. Mito haina maji. Tumekuwa na shida miaka 3 hatujakuwa na mvua ya kutosha. So mambo ya kukata miti for the next 90 days tumesema iwekwe kando, wizara iketi chini. In the next 2 weeks the ministry must tell the country how are we going to rectify the situation and the forest resources in this country.
That is Deputy President William Ruto. Now, Susy, what do you think? What will be the impact of this banning of logging in public and community forests?
Well, with all due respect, it's a good move, but it's temporary.
Yes.
Because there are two things here. One, there are loggers who had received licenses, followed the protocol.
Yes.
And either some of them are abusing it or they're all abusing it. I'm not sure.
And there could also be those who have snuck into the forest.
And then there are those who are going into the forest who don't have licenses and who are logging illegally. So it is like who's the bad guy and who's the good guy between the two types of loggers. But then I think that's actually a short-term measure. For a long time, we have been struggling as a country to get the citizens, everybody, to understand why forests are important. And somehow it seems as if that message hasn't gone through.
So what do we need to do? Like now, since these authorities are being asked to give solutions, what are some of the solutions that can be made as we speak, since they're expected to have solutions in the next 2 weeks?
Well, I know that certainly the Kenya Forest Service have had a strategy in place.
Okay.
Working with community forest associations. What has been a hindrance is they have not been allocated
Funds.
the resources to be able to carry out those actions. So maybe cabinet through the deputy president, the presidency could indicate that one of the things that must happen is that forestry be given the resources that it requests for. The Ministry of Environment and Forestry be given the resources that they request for. Be allocated, let me put it that way.
The actual allocation.
You know, because, for example, you can ask for 100 bob, but then you're given 20.
So you can't do much with 20.
Yeah. So maybe I think the most immediate is, because, the budget, of course, is being prepared, is ensure that
they factor in that
that ministry is provided the as much allocation as possible. I mean, recognize that the economy has not been doing so well, so maybe there may not be that much available.
But out of some resources.
Out of the 100 bob, instead of 20, at least give them, say, 55.
Right.
To be able to carry some of these things.
Okay, so now the other thing we're hearing is that government is setting up a national water storage and harvesting authority. Now, what do you think will be the impact of having a specific body dealing with storage and harvesting? Will it help?
I hope so. Because Kenya does have a lot of bodies that are doing different things, but then the thing is, they'll be required to have funding to carry out the mandate.
So we go back to where we were.
So ultimately, the bottom line is whether bodies are created or not, is that particular sector has got to have its budget allocation
and
increased.
Systems in place.
The systems are in place.
As in policies and everything that work accountably.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, we have like I said, I talked about the Climate Change Act 2016.
Yes.
The climate change policy, which was finally approved by Parliament about last month.
Okay, so it's a new thing.
So, but it's been there. But the climate change legislation and policy, work began in 2008.
It's taken
so it's not that this is something that it's been in place.
So 10 years later.
But and then there's a climate change directorate that is in place. They're based at the Kenya Meteorological Department. The systems are in place. What has been lacking, with all due respect, is the financial resources. If you allocate enough, then a lot of these things, a lot of the actions that will help minimize the water stress can be undertaken.
Now let's bring this home. For those of us listening to you today, what are the things I can do? What are the things we can do? How do we harvest this water? How do we conserve it? What are some of the things we need to do? We started in the kitchen. We need to think about, having our taps running when we're brushing our teeth or doing what. That's one start. What else can we do around us? Because you see, like you said, we need to all own up to this capacity.
Yeah.
So what are the things that we can do?
Okay, in terms of harvesting water, depending on where you live. If you're fortunate enough and you live in a standalone home, it has gutters.
Right.
Yeah. So you can ensure when it rains, that water is stored. If you have a home up country, the same thing. Or basically you ensure that the way you build your houses, that you're able to store water. But if you live in a flat, if you live in an apartment or in a studio in the capital or in the urban area, the best way is just be efficient in using of water. Because there's all, you really, if you live in an apartment, you really can't harvest that much.
No.
But whatever water you have, use it as well as you can. And probably change the way you cook.
Change the way you wash your dishes. You don't have to wash them under running tap.
Change the way you do laundry.
Yeah, we waste a lot of. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
Because it's good to be clean, but recognize this is a precious resource that is very limited. Yeah. So when I was talking about recycling water, for example, there's certain things like if even I know they might consider it weird, but like for example, the water that you use for vegetables, using it for mopping, or using it to say like there's some people who do initial washing before they wash thoroughly.
Yes, you first soak the clothes, then you wash them again.
Maybe use some of that water in some of the things that will not, some of your clothes. It's finding different ways, and along the way, you'll figure out, I've been able to save here, I've been able to save here. But then also, that's one thing. But then another thing is also at work.
Yes.
It's not only in the homes, but also at work. How are those resources used? If we can be efficient, then if we're going to hold our duty bearers accountable, we can be able to do that from an authentic space, because we ourselves are doing it.
What you're preaching.
But if we're not doing it, then we can't. Also how you see hawkers who sell bags and things like that, they draw water from the drainages.
Yes.
And that water has a lot of toxins and pollutants in it. They use a rug, a wipe, or whatever, and then
you don't even know what's in that water, by the way.
That is also a way of how diseases can spread. So it's not enough, but it's a start. But then beyond what I've said, I need people to read. When I say that, I need them to look up.
What are they reading? We start saying reading.
I want them to look for, and it's in the public domain, the Kenya Climate Change Act 2016.
Okay.
I want them to look for the Kenya Climate Change Policy, which is in the public domain.
So you could tell us generally about them. So there are things they need to know about the act and the policy.
Because the legislation basically gives the legal basis for ensuring that climate change consideration is incorporated in everything Kenya does.
In all our walks of everything.
Everything from the national to county governments.
Yes.
From private sector, from ordinary citizens, which means everybody. Yeah, that's one. Two, it also shows and also it looks at the gender the gender consideration, because how men and women, young men and young women use resources is different.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I need to make sure, with all due respect, girls, females, we use our resources very, very carefully. Yeah.
Because we're the beast of burden, you know that if you don't use your water properly, you're going to have to go really far to get the water, or, you're going to have to carry it all yourself.
So I think it's important that we work together. Yeah. But I mentioned those are the two things. But then also, Kenya is a signature of international agreements, right?
So what are they that are supposed
to be? The Paris Agreement is very, very specific, because it actually brought a bottoms-up approach internationally of how to handle climate change. Which means that communities, grassroots.
So it starts, charity begins at home first.
Yes. But what I mean by reading is it's important to know what ideas, what actions are intended for budgeting. Yeah? That way okay, this doesn't help, or this is not helping us in respond to the water crisis we're experiencing.
Yes.
So you'll be able to put pressure.
Okay.
So I know Kenyans don't like to read. I'm a reader.
No, we're encouraging them to read. This is about not liking. You have to start reading.
Yeah. You need to start reading. Yeah. You need to start reading. And that's, because you know what? Knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
And basically, what I have said is basically scratching the surface. There's that much more that can be done. Yeah.
So that is at least conserving for us at house and policy level. At county level, what is it people need to do, or where do they need to reach out? How do we hold our MCAs and other people, put them to task?
Well, at the county level, they have their county integrated development plans. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying when I talk about reading, looking at them and seeing what are they doing when
In
it comes
terms
to
of
water,
water,
for example?
yeah.
You know, and it's not about what you're doing on only. It's also how much has been allocated
to be able to handle those
and
issues.
when it's not enough, need to be able to say, with all due respect, this is not enough. You must allocate more resources.
So that's why we need to understand the role of public participation now under the devolved government.
Absolutely.
That we have a voice and we need to vocalize.
And also, it's important to be able to follow these processes from the beginning as much as possible. Because, you know, it's like going to a restaurant. You know, they'll give you a menu, right? But if you were there when the menu was being designed, yeah, then some of the things that you care about will be on the menu.
Yes, or when you're building a house, you don't just come and say, I want a house. When you're building your house, you know,
Yes.
I want a door through the kitchen.
Yes.
I want a door through here.
Yes.
So you're involved in the creating of this building.
Absolutely.
Which is our community.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Because also, the reason why I say that is because remember a few years ago, Kenyans for Kenyans.
Yes.
You know how within a week period, something like, I don't know, it was like how many millions of shillings were raised from ordinary citizens.
Yeah, but you see, we can't keep doing that.
No, I know
Yeah.
that. My point is, yes, is that if we thought about what is it I can do, how can I get involved? If we're able to have raised several hundreds of millions of shillings in a
few
week's
days,
time,
yeah.
that means with my 10 bob, my 5 bob, somebody else's 50 bob, they can be where there are gaps in the government's budget.
We could fill
We
them.
could be able to fill it
Yeah.
to complement. That's where, but be able to do that, you have to be able to read
To
the
be
policy
aware,
documents
the power,
that
the
they have
knowledge.
put there.
Yeah.
Be aware to be able to challenge where you feel that this isn't something isn't right. You know, and that's how we'll be able to address the impacts of climate change when regards to water. It's actually going to be long term. It's not. The
Yeah,
solution
it's
will
not
not
changing.
be.
Yes, the ice caps aren't coming back. The temperatures
take a
are
while.
getting higher.
It'll take a while.
So, and also maybe we need to start thinking, yes, you need to hold your officials accountable, you know, whether it is your chief or what, start asking questions, because I
Yes.
think that's how it starts.
Yeah.
Ask questions,
Yeah.
so that then they start saying, tunataka kuleta maji, na hii maji itapita wapi?
Yeah.
Hii maji imetoka wapi?
Yeah.
You know, even where you're having rationing,
Yeah.
ask them what's happening, why, when, where,
Yeah.
so that the more we create awareness, then we can speak.
And then also, people need to know that water doesn't belong to somebody.
Please repeat that one, because
Water does not belong to somebody.
yes,
it
it doesn't
belongs
mean
to
because the pipes
everybody.
are passing through so and so's place and
Yeah.
he can funga when he wants.
Yeah.
Because now us in the rural areas, so and so
Yeah.
fungas and jazas their lot.
Yeah.
Then they open at their will and then you get the water.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate. So the whole change of thinking, because basically water we say is life.
Yes.
People say it and then it's just become like a cliche. But it's going to get to a point where we may lose a significant portion of our population.
Which is already quietly happening when we have
Yes, it
droughts.
is.
We must be honest about this.
And
so we need to
floods.
start, yes, and floods.
Yeah.
So we need to think about it. So not only are animals dying out, if we're not careful, we'll be phased out as well.
Exactly.
Because if you have no food and all this is happening and the water's getting all, you know, polluted with chemicals and things that are not sustainable for human life. So we need to think about that. Basically, our existence is determined by what we do.
And also finding innovative ways of harvesting water.
That's
Harvesting
the
water is
part
not
we
just
need to
tanks
know.
alone.
Yeah, what you need to know,
There are
what are
different
the
ways.
things we could do. So read.
You know,
Yeah.
so of course that you can
Other
build
than the usual dams.
water pans and things like that.
Yeah.
But also you know, like conservation agriculture, or what you can call it organic farming. You know, where you have mulch, grass,
Yes.
over the soil, so the soil is not open.
So it
You
holds
know,
in the
it
moisture.
holds, yeah. But the point is, all these things, you know, because, you know, if we had 24 hours today
It's
to
not
talk about it,
possible, yeah.
will still not even be enough. But there's so much to be done. And also, you know, in the manufacturing industry, you know, they use water. How they use water in their processing. You know, in the what they call the supply chain.
Yes.
The value supply chain. How that water is used is also important.
And where it goes after that.
You know, and then the thing is that water can be recycled and it can be used for something else. So it's not only at the household level where you consider recycling water.
It's everywhere.
But it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And industrial area, I mean, my goodness, if they recycle the water they used, you know, there'll be less pressure, you know, for water coming from Ndakaine. Ndakaine Dam, where we get it from Nairobi.
Yeah.
You know, there'll be more water for household and things like that. You know, so it takes a change of seeing the world.
through different eyes.
Different eyes.
Absolutely. So thank you very much. That is Susy Wandera, Secretary of the Board and Climate Change Focal Point at the Sustainable Environmental Development Watch. That's Suswatch Kenya. Thank you so much. This conversation has just begun. We've just created awareness. So like she said, read. People perish for lack of knowledge. There is knowledge to be sought.